Everybody's talking at me.
CRN, Chuck Wilder here, and let me tell you about my guest, the one and only Kimberly Dvorak, D-V-O-R-A-K, streaming live on Facebook. She is the award-winning National Security and Border Security Investigative Reporter for TV, radio, and the print media. Kimberly, by the way, is the Senior Foreign Policy Advisor for the Committee for Responsible Foreign Policy. We need that. She is a TV correspondent for CW6 News San Diego, as well as One America News Network. And her website is The KD Report. The KD Report. Hey, Kimberly, how are you?
I'm doing fine, Chuck.
All right. Listen, nothing going on, nothing to see here. Don't know nothing. It's like Swartz, huh? When you try to find out what's going on with the border.
Yeah. Well, I just like to, start this segment off with some good news. And I'm telling you, it's really good news.
All right.
The UCLA Bruins made it to the Grade 8 last night by knocking off number 2 Alabama in overtime. So this household's very happy.
Well, let me tell you, ma'am. Hey, this may be the end of our...
made it as well. Yes, I know.
I know, yeah. I'm getting ready to say, this might be the ending of our beautiful relationship here. You know what? And UCLA ranked number 11, Alabama ranked number 2. And I mean, hey, congratulations.
Well, UCLA had to play to get in, though. But they had to play the first 4 to even get into the tournament.
Yeah.
So they're on a nice little run.
The problem is, there's this little basketball group, Gonzaga, that is just waiting for anybody. And, USC, I mean, and you got the brothers together there. I just managed to stay up long enough to watch all of them. So I'll tell you, maybe we're going to get some excellent basketball players coming across the border. Wait a minute, I don't think Mexico is really into that too much, are they? They have some pretty good baseball
soccer players, though.
Yeah, they know how to
the
jump.
Soccer team does need some help, I'll tell you.
Yeah. I like this interesting quote here you have, or the title actually, Baghdad Bob rides again. And people say, Baghdad, boy, I remember that from something else.
Boy.
Wasn't that something
he
serious?
He was my favorite character that played on when I was watching the invasion of Iraq back in 2003. And it was, I always was looking forward to what Baghdad Bob was going to be telling the Iraqi people, that they've been slaughtering the Americans in the desert. They're whimpering like the babies that they are. They are not anywhere near the city. And each day you saw everybody getting closer and closer and closer. Well, this is kind of likened to what's going on over at DHS with the secretary over there telling the American people on live TV a couple of times that there's no problem at the border. It's closed. There are no problems down there. So
yeah,
when
Mary
you look at
Orcas.
things in that, when you look at things like that, anytime I can use a Baghdad Bob analogy, I do, just because I absolutely loved it. But he was the chief propagandist for Iraq and Saddam Hussein.
I'm so glad that you didn't put in your label today, because I'm having a hard time reading, about Baghdad Bob and Biden together. So I could have been a problem there, yeah. But, Kamala Harris, okay, or Kamala Harris, whichever. Here she is now. He's going to let her fix the border, Kimberly. Says, I've now appointed her to fix the border crisis. Let me tell you something, listener, watcher. This is the lady that compared Immigrations and Custom Enforcement, ICE agency. She said they're like working with the Ku Klux Klan. And that's what she's going to be doing now, yes. Have to work with the Ku Klux Klan, known as the United States ICE agency.
And let's not forget that last week when she was asked about the migrants and if she was going to go down to the border, she laughed and said, not today, and laughed it off like it was a joke. But let me tell you, the unaccompanied minors that are coming across the border, and after Biden's press conference on Thursday that we all waited for, what he had said was that, basically this is a normal thing that happens. obviously falling back and blaming Trump on some of these issues. And to the credit of two different reporters, and that's it, but the two reporters came back saying that they were down at the border and they talked to a 9-year-old and another young child who made the trek alone from Honduras all the way up to the border and across the border. Now, how many of those kids that age are making that trek? How many of them are falling into the hands of the cartels? And how many of these kids are either dying on the journey because they're not waiting around to take them to the urgent care when they get dehydrated, can't keep up, how many of these kids are being sold into the sex slavery issue that has just exponentially grown over the last several years? If that's compassion, then I would hate to see what hate is from this administration. What they are doing is not compassionate. And I can tell you, I've been south of the border, and I've been to these safe houses, and I've spent a few days with girls that have been rescued from these situations and these daring trucks to go all the way up through Mexico. And let me tell you, these kids are broken, and these kids are broken for life. And for anybody that thinks that, we're doing the right thing by taking the world's kids into this country, they better think again, because what they're not talking about, in the very dishonest part that they're not talking about, are children are being killed, children are being sold into sex slavery, and children are not making it back to their families. So who knows what is in store for them once they reach America.
And I'm going to tell you something. I heard a report, I guess it was yesterday, I think, and they were saying, no, this is not a crisis. This was a Democrat spokesperson. No, it's not a crisis. These people are leaving a depressed area, and then they go on. They can't live there, they can't work there, and it's terrible, and they have gangs there, and blah, 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 and they go on and on and on, right? And they say that's why they're leaving. No, they're leaving because they're going to come here and get so much more when it comes to dinero, mainly, all right, money. And then you've got Miss Nancy Pelosi, right? Did you hear why they're leaving? Did you hear her explanation why all of these thousands and thousands and thousands of people are getting out of there? Global warming.
Yeah.
Can you believe that, Kimberly? Global warming, that's what it is. It's not a crisis. My goodness.
Yeah. Well, I think when you have a campaign for president and throughout the campaign, you're like, please come to America. We are open for business.
Especially
and during that same campaign, it's like, well, you know what? We're going to have free health care for all. We're going to have free education for all. We're going to write off all student debt for all. We're going to spend all of this money. Now in California, San Francisco, or Oakland actually is going to start this guaranteed income program. These are programs that we aren't able to afford any longer. And the issue with all of the spending on all of these issues, whether it's with the illegal immigration or whether it's with just, social welfare benefits, is the fact that our infrastructure is just cratering. So there's no money for infrastructure, and the dramatic increase of people in this country are adding to these issues where bridges are falling down and roads aren't being built, and you can't take a train from A to Z in California, and things of that nature, because people don't realize what we're really spending our money on, and have we taken care of our own people first, and maybe we'd have money around to kind of fix up some of the infrastructure that this country desperately needs.
Well, and in your latest report, you mentioned, and let me tell you something, listener, if, summer's coming up, right? If you'd like to, go on a vacation and stay in a nice big old hotel, guess what? Jump over the border, act like you don't know anything about America, and come back over here, because in Kimberly's report, here it is, adding to the mess in the Biden administration's authorization for ICE is this $86 million. You know what they're going to use that $86 million for? To house the migrants in American hotels. Because, it's not overcrowded at the border, then why do you need $86 million to put them in motels? Hotels, not motels. Wow. Wouldn't
Yeah.
you like to,
Well,
gee,
that's
sorry.
one way to get a vacation, I suppose. But one
Yeah,
of the
really.
other things, and this is government, both parties typically do these things, but at the press conference, President Biden did come out and say that they were going to be investing $700 million into a task group to figure out why these people are leaving the country. Not like going towards actually paying for those hospital beds, but they're going to study this for $700 million.
Study it.
Unbelievable.
The football teams don't even use that to study, the playoff teams. Anyway, what was the other thing? Number one, I sent you a video, and I may have sent it too late for you to get a chance to check it out.
Yeah.
Very short, like, maybe 30, 40 seconds. But it's actual video on the border. You got it?
No, I didn't get it. So I'm waiting for you to enlighten me what that 30 seconds is.
Well, it may be a minute and a half. I don't think so, though. But anyway, it is a video that was taken of the stuff that you're not supposed to see at the border. And
oh yeah.
Yeah, and Ted Cruz, he's talking about the senior advisor said Joe Biden administration blocked him from taking photos. And then, of course, Biden says, well, we'll get around to it. Well, what are you going to do about it? Well, I got Kamala, she's going to, the president will take care of it for us. He's called her president about 3 or 4 times, I think.
So many times. I would not count on her going down to the border unless former President Trump actually announces the plans that he's going to the border, because we heard from him last week, obviously saying that this is a disgrace, that, under his administration, they went after the issue and worked a deal out with Mexico that anybody coming up would have to stay in Mexico, have their cases heard there. And then they had a deal with Honduras, El Salvador, and Guatemala, with those 3 countries as well, that if they got themselves up to Mexico, they were staying put. They weren't going to be able to make the treacherous walk up through the country, through the drug cartel lands and that. So I think when you look at this, that was the first thing that Biden stopped, and he just ripped up those agreements. And, that was really, what turned the migrant caravans back. Because, we did see several of them back in 2018 and into early 19. But the Trump administration successfully was able to nip that in the bud using these diplomacy efforts. And then, he gets criticized for putting these kids in the same cages, in essence, that the Biden administration is. But at least under Trump's administration, there weren't thousands and thousands and thousands of them, and they each had their own bed. They didn't stay in a facility longer than 72 hours at the border. They were transferred around to centers across the country. The First Lady even went out and visited, and it looks, like you go in, they had classrooms for school and snacks and water and everything they could need. But the conditions now at the border, which Democrat Henry Cuellar, whose district this is happening in, he released these videos of the disgraceful conditions that these families are living in and these children are living in. It's just, it breaks your heart to think that this is what they're doing. And when you hear a couple of reporters inform the president of the United States, and I'm talking about Biden here, that look, they've talked to young kids that have been going and making this journey on their own at 9 years old. You do that in this country, your kid is taken away from you.
Yeah.
You can't do those things. And we're encouraging that. Not we're, the Biden administration. And they still are not forcefully saying, if you get here, it doesn't matter. We're turning around and putting you on a plane the same day. They're not doing that yet. And this is going to continue because everybody thinks they're going to get up here and make it in time for the free $1,400 stimulus checks and all of those issues. So, it's one thing after another. And this has led to the, perfect storm right now. And, nobody's prepared to take care of this along the southern border.
And you almost feel, and I'm just going to come out and say it, that this administration is sort of like, and of course they're not going to admit it, but laying back and saying, all right, so maybe we'll have, 100 deaths on the border. But just think, in just a few years, and especially with the adults coming over, we have got that entire vote wrapped up. And I'm going to tell you, that's the way they think.
I think it's sad, but I think that the reason they are sending all of the kids up is because once the kids get into some sort of foster care type system and they get caseworkers assigned to them, which the caseworkers are already overwhelmed with all the kids that are needing to be in the system in this country, but now we're going to add all of these new and documented, kids that are going to speak a different language on top of everything else. But they're going to say, here's my mom and dad, here's their phone number, and they're going to contact them, and they're going to say, okay, yeah, here's your visa to come in so you can take care of your kid here.
Yeah.
That's coming, because that's what's coming next.
Yeah. And by the way, that little white postcard there, just mark the thing there. Let's see where it says Democrat. Yeah, just put a little check mark right there, would you? Because
why wouldn't you?
And a little bit later on, you'll get another postcard when it's time to go out and vote. Believe me, that's the main reason, and the other reason is because for some reason it seems like they have a plan for disaster. I mean, it is unbelievable. We're going to take a break, Kimberly, and then we'll be right back. All right, hold that thought. Don't forget what you're going to say now. All right, and it has nothing to do with UCLA. I know, right? Kimberly Dvorak, D-V-O-R-A-K, and the website is KDReport.com.
You order a glass of your favorite Cabernet, fresh asparagus, hollandaise on the side, a filet, medium rare. You unfurl your napkin with a flair, close your eyes, and prepare to listen. Ah, there it is. The sweet music you long to hear. The sizzle. The sizzle of a Ruth's Chris steak.
The most magnificent corn-fed prime beef, broiled to perfection at 1,800 degrees. Some call it a sizzle. We call it an anthem.
As the waiter approaches, you think, is this one mine or that one?
Ruth's Chris Steakhouse. Like Ruth always said, life's too short to eat anywhere else.
Make a reservation online at ruthschris.com or by calling 800-544-0808.
Let's talk about your credit cards. When you first start using them, it's a slow drip. You make charges, then more charges, then bills come, and they keep coming. When you open your statements, the floodgates come pouring in. You realize you have more credit card debt than you can afford, and you're barely making the minimum payments. Wouldn't it be nice to make one affordable payment and have all your credit card bills covered? Make this free call and learn our responsible way to get your credit card bills paid and under control.
Sponsored by Consumer Education Services.
Chuck Wilder, CRN, with my guest Kimberly Dvorak, Senior Foreign Policy Advisor for the Committee for Responsible Foreign Policy. And she says, yes, don't forget, I have one other thing I want to mention. Go ahead. That was quick, wasn't it?
The one thing I wanted to mention is that also during Biden's press conference last week, he said that the vast majority of these migrants are being turned around immediately at the border and sent home. And that's just simply not true. The number's more like 6% of them are actually being sent back at the border. And then he also, sat back and blamed Trump for, dismantling all of these, tents and that they had put out there when they had the migrants first coming in under the Trump administration. So because he got to work on the border fence and started working on that, put these policies in place, that stemmed the tide. Then, of course, he's going to they did take down these tents that they, put up in the middle of nowhere. And you have to remember that most of these places are in the desert, so it's warm. But he blamed Trump for that, and he said that he was going to have 5,000 beds ready to go for these kids within 72 hours. Well, the press conference was on Thursday, and there are no new 5,000 beds to take care of these unaccompanied minors, and there's no plan to stop the tide from allowing these minors because, as Joe Biden put it, he's not going to let them starve on the other side of the Rio Grande. So I guess he's insisting that, or, insinuating that the president of Mexico is allowing children to starve to death on the border. And he was also intimating that President Trump let them stay over there, and he was practicing genocide by letting them starve to death.
Wow. I'll tell you. Sometimes you do. Oh, well. I got to tell you something, Kimberly and listener, right? Twice now, and the second time was during that press conference, Joe Biden has mentioned that he's been in Congress, a congressman, for 120 years. Now, and he doesn't laugh it off or, or anything like that, And I'm wondering, is somebody putting that in there on those talk sheets, those little cheat sheets?
Yeah.
Are they putting that in there and saying, all right, I owe you another $190 because he said it again? You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
It almost.
Yeah,
wow.
I think that he is. And you look at the questions he was asked, and there was no combative people going back into his face like a Jim Acosta from CNN did to Trump all the time. But to Trump's credit, he always did call on Acosta as well. Unlike, Biden only going to the liberal base to ask questions. I think that he showed that he had no idea what is going on. I think it leads the American people to question who's actually running the country. And if you're the president of the free world, do you need a note card to look at to see what your policy is on China, what your policy is going to be on the border, what your policy is on this? And, here's the questions we're expected to answer. And, and you have to look at a note card. And oftentimes he actually just looked down on it and he just read it. And, you would think that if he just got off the phone and he had a good relationship with Xi over in China, he may remember that. And he might be able, like you and I here, to discuss things without looking down at notes and going like this. I would certainly hope so. But I think that is what I came away with on Thursday, wondering who is actually running this country. And my guess is Barack Obama.
Well, and I'll tell you something. Former White House physician for Barack Obama and Donald Trump said that the 78-year-old Joe Biden struggling, okay?
Yeah.
The good news is, listeners, is that guess what? Even the mainstream media is starting to report on all of the stuff that we've been talking about for a long time. They're gradually getting there. Kimberly Dvorak. Hey, thank you very much. We'll do it again next week, lady. All right. DVORAK, and it's thekdreport.com. Be right back.